Well, hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. 1 week away from heading down to Walt Disney World for the Summit Cheerleading Championships of the Universe. Hope you're doing well wherever you are in the world. If you're checking this out on YouTube as we record live and then here on the Patreon feed, getting ready to talk Mike in the Midwest, already episode 44. Or as we say in St. Louis, farty far. Because we have a highway called Highway Farty. Highway Farty 64, right outside, 2 miles down from the studio. Yeah, you go west on Highway Farty. That's how you say it in St. Louis. I'm not kidding. I don't say it like that. 40. But it's a car wash. Car wash. Heard a commercial the other day. It cracked me up how they said car wash. I love those commercials, by the way. Your cousin from Boston. Those are so funny because I've never been to Boston, but it just cracks me up. Okay, anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about this. Let's do Mike in the Midwest, episode 44. Kind of hyped up today. Well, hey, everybody. Happy Thursday to all the amazing patrons of the Be Our Guest podcast. This is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, your friend here on the Patreon feed. I hope you are doing well. We're recording episode number 44 of Mike in the Midwest today. This is April 22nd, 2021. How quickly we can lose track of the days. I hope the show finds you well. I'm kind of excited today because I just realized as I was doing some work here in the office this morning, that's the joy of helping people plan Disney vacations, is that you're in it so much that you don't even realize, like we're looking at cruises this morning. I've worked with Adventures by Disney this morning. I've looked at a trip to California, not in Disneyland, for a guest. And of course, Walt Disney World. I moved somebody from Coronado to Caribbean Beach to Art of Animation. We had an upgrade from movies to a suite over at Art of Animation. I mean, we've had all this going on and it's only 10 o'clock in the morning. So I get my Disney fix all the time, and I'm so in it that sometimes I don't even think that, oh my gosh, I get to be down there in 1 week. Our flight is at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, this time next week on Thursday. Again, you guys have probably heard me talk about it on the podcast, but we're staying at the Hilton. Unfortunately, we could have had between us, since we're all friends here on the Patreon, we had the cheerleading group had a killer deal at Coronado Springs. I mean, it was a great deal. It was almost the travel agent rate, which is a really good deal. And the gym picked the Hilton. I was like, oh, you're kidding me. You picked the Hilton. Because I was like, if we could just stay at an All-Star, I'll be totally happy because I'm on property. Nope, we picked the Hilton. Why did we pick the Hilton? Because the Hilton has put in one of their big ballrooms. They've put in a spring floor, which is what the cheerleaders use to perform on. I get it. They can run through the routines right there in the hotel. If you've never been down, because I hadn't done this until 2019, a couple of years ago was the first time I'd ever done this. If you've never been down to Walt Disney World during dance and cheer season, a lot of the teams stay at All-Stars. But obviously, since movies is the only All-Star open, they're spilling over to Pop Century, Art of Animation, and Coronado this year. And these teams practice like all the time. I mean, these girls, because again, it's a cheerleading squad. So my daughter's squad has, I think, 28 girls. It's a big squad. They're in a big division. There's like small squads. There's all kinds of like groups that you compete against. They're a big squad. They have a lot of girls, but you'll see some that have like 10, 12. They're practicing everywhere. So if you're at the All-Stars, especially if you're at sports, they have those football fields between the buildings. I mean, there's like cheerleaders everywhere. Girls stunting, girls flying, flipping. There's a they showed their world, like we're Summit, we're kind of intermediate like level. Worlds is like all out best cheerleaders on the planet, and they perform at Walt Disney World too. And there was this team called the Great Whites from Canada. and they won Worlds. They made a Netflix documentary about them, and they were at All Stars. And you saw them; they're throwing girls in the air out between the buildings at All Stars. It was nuts. So anyway, yeah, we could have stayed at Coronado Springs, but the Hilton enticed the gym by putting in the cheer floor so that they can practice inside in air conditioning without leaving the hotel where we're staying. I get it. It's a business trip. Am I excited about that? No. But what can you do? So we're going to be there Thursday night until Sunday. And then Sunday night, we're moving over to Coronado Springs. See, I got my Coronado in, but we're staying a couple days extra. Pam flies home on Monday. Mallory and I are going to stay down till Wednesday to go to the Magic Kingdom and Epcot a couple times and just have some fun, celebrate. It's what it's all about. So I'm really excited for that. So of course I'll have all the coverage on Instagram, especially, but I'll push it out to Twitter as well. But do follow me on Instagram because that's where it'll be. I'll be going live as well. I'll put some stuff in the patron Discord. I'm going to be better about getting in there. I've been so busy over the last month. I've just kind of neglected being in the Discord because I get distracted when I get into a chat thing like that. I want to be all in. But I am going to jump back in there and enjoy everybody's company in our Discord channel exclusively for our patrons. So hop in there and I'll do the same. But yeah, I'll put all the pictures and all that stuff. We are going to Epcot. We're going to the Magic Kingdom. Mallory and I have hoppers. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, Wednesday we'll be flying home at night. And also I'm flying home on Cinco de Mayo. Like that is my holiday. I mean, if there's ever anybody that likes Mexican food and margaritas, it's me. I'll be in the air with no drink service on Cinco de Mayo. I know there's worse things, but hey, speaking of that, I do get to go to Paradiso 37, which I think will have some nice fajitas or something like that. I have a feeling I'm going to become the champion for this restaurant. Not sure. I've walked past it, I think, for a decade, never gone in, always been curious. I have an ADR because I figure I'm staying at Disney Springs. I'm in the neighborhood. Why not? And so this could be my new Olivia's. Who knows? Probably not, but you never know. So I'm excited about going to Paradiso 37 as well. Also, what's happening here in the Midwest this week? Yes, it is mid to late April. We had snow 2 days ago. We had an inch of snow. Crazy. It's on my Instagram. Big old snowflakes because it was only about 35 degrees. It wasn't super cold. It got super cold that night when the snow stopped. But yeah, that was kind of shocking because just this morning, everybody's cutting their grass and it's still like 45, but beautiful sunny skies. So we had strange weather here in the Midwest. Going to be 80 degrees on Monday. So hallelujah, it's going to be nice. Not too much else going on. We've recorded the podcast. We got those coming out on the feed. Of course, this Sunday night we'll have Scott will join me and we'll take your calls. So if you want to call in, we love hearing from our patrons. Give us a call, 7:00 Eastern, 6:00 Central, right on Facebook and YouTube. So give us a call this Sunday night. The next Sunday night, of course, no show because I'll be at Walt Disney World. Yes. I just like saying that, right? Isn't it fun to talk about like that you're going because it goes so quickly and then all of a sudden you just get home. You're just like, oh, I dreamed about it for 6 months and it's over. Oh, well, we'll make it happen. All right. So today, before we get into today's topic, and this topic I think was meant to be, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Let's go back over last week. We talked about grabbing that win early in the day, whether it is, for me, sending out a vacation quote, answering somebody's question about their trip early in the day, just having the chance to make lunch for my wife or my kid or do something for them. For me, many days it's getting out, getting a run in, first thing in the morning. I grab that win. I do something positive early in the day so that if the wheels start to fall off later on, at least you've got a little victory under your belt. Today's not going to be that bad because you've already got a win. Now, you might have some losses that day, but you've got to win early, and that kind of changes your mindset for the whole day. So I talked about that. I also read that article about Commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey. He ran 365 consecutive days outside, and that was pretty cool because I run a lot, but I run on, like this morning, it was too cold. I wasn't going out there. It was 29. I ran on the treadmill. I was like, no, it's too cold. Anyway, feedback on this show real quick was from Megan Green. Megan, thank you so much for being a patron. She says, this was a great episode, Mike. Thank you so much. I took up running using the run walk method in the fall of 2019, and I've kept at it consistently 3 times a week ever since then. It has literally changed my life. I'm more fit and strong now than I ever was, even when I was younger. And it does wonders for my mental health, especially throughout this pandemic. I love the outdoors, and I run every single run outside, cold, hot, sunny, raining, snowing, you name it. All that being said, I've never been an athletically talented person, and that's putting it mildly. So I'm very much a slow and steady runner. So completing each and every one of those runs is my win. They almost never happen early in the day just because of the obligations I have now in my life, but they do happen. And that's a win enough for me. So Megan, that is awesome. But I'm a wimp, right? You just called me out too. You and Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC. You guys are both calling me out. No, I love it. And I love that you've got that consistency, right? Because it gives you stability. It gives you, because I used to run 3 or 4 times a week. Now I'm stupid and I do it every day. I shouldn't do it this way. I don't know. I'm obsessed. But when you do like 3 or 4 days a week, like it gives you like, okay, Tuesday, I got something. This is it. This is my run day. I get out there. I get to enjoy the outdoors. I get to, use my new sneakers that I got for running and doing a run walk. Cause I did run walk for years and years, and it really helped me get in shape. This is awesome. And I'm proud of you, Megan. That is great. I love it, because the thing is, I know Megan has a family, and the thing is, she doesn't mention any of this, but I will tell you this is the case. She is showing her sons that this is a healthy way to take care of yourself. And those kids are watching, and they're going to be more likely to, jump into some physical activity themselves because they see mom doing it. And they probably see mom being happy when she comes back in. We're on that runner's high when you come back in. Every morning when I come in for my runs, I'm like pretty pumped, and I'm more excited just because it's behind me. I'm glad that I'm done. And I can just, now grab some breakfast. I always have my peanut butter and jelly toast, and get to work and get down into the office. But I feel better because I had that activity, and your kids are seeing that and they're reaping the benefits as well. The whole family. I think when somebody works out or gets exercise, I think everybody in the family benefits, because that person is they're happier. They have the, they have the runner's high there for a little bit. We're all happy. And then, you get tired later, and that's how you take a nap. All right, Megan, thank you so much for that feedback. If you ever have any feedback for the shows, please just visit the Patreon page over at patreon.com/BeOurGuest Podcast. Put the comments below in today's video or the audio feed, whichever you prefer. And I will definitely read that on the next show. But what are we talking about today? Today, I was reading an article. I have Apple. Well, actually, I bought it for my wife, but I kind of mooch off of it. A couple of years ago, my wife is a magazine reader. And so for Christmas, or for her birthday one year, a couple of years ago, I bought her that Apple magazine subscription thing where I would always get her a couple of magazine subscriptions, but for like $10 a month, she got a subscription to like 250 magazines on her iPad. So I was like, that's a way better deal than what I'm doing, paying for all these, 1 or 2 magazines, and it's more than that. So I got that for her. So I read these magazines, and I know I sound old, but I read like Reader's Digest and Retro Gamer magazine and all these magazines. I just look for articles that interest me. I like to read at night on the iPad. And I found an article talking about how somebody was writing that, how interesting would it be if you could go back to places from earlier in your life, especially your childhood, and have like a day to just observe that day again, knowing what you know now. Right? Because many times I think that, we all have memories. And if you've learned anything from this 44 episode journey on Mike in the Midwest, is that I am a hugely nostalgic person. I love playing Pac-Man. I love 80s music. I love and you know what? I was thinking about this, why are some people nostalgic and why are some people not? I would say the reason that I'm nostalgic, and the reason that people that have this nostalgia like me, we must have had really, really good childhoods. We must have really enjoyed it, or else we wouldn't look back on it so fondly. So I think this is a reflection of my parents, right? And my grandparents, who definitely helped out my parents, because I will tell you, when I was a kid, we didn't have a whole lot. Like, I think I've mentioned this before. My mom didn't go back to work until I was I think my sister, who's 4 years younger than me, was in elementary school, at kindergarten. And my mom just worked at a doctor's office doing office, stuff. And my dad was a cement mason, which means he put in like basements, front porches, driveways, uh, stuff like I did some commercial work for buildings, but he put in concrete work, and so did my grandpa. They were both in the same union. So while my dad was in the union, my grandpa was in the union. They made pretty decent money, working in construction. In the winter times, once it got to be super cold and was freezing, my dad would be out of work for 2 months, and he didn't get paid if he was out of work, if he wasn't working, which made sense. So, there were a lot of lean times, and but we always had what we needed, which was awesome. So when I look back, I always had I didn't have the best bike, but I had a bike. I didn't have every game system when I was a kid, but I had an Atari 2600. And I ended up having a couple of Commodore 64s later in life because I love those things. I ran a BBS. We even had a second phone line. That was unheard of because I ran a BBS on the one phone line. Some people probably have no idea what I'm talking about. Dr. Kai, So we had the things to make us have a wonderful childhood. So that's what, I was thinking about that. Like, why am I nostalgic like this? And why are some people just like, I don't remember really much from my childhood. And maybe it's because they didn't have such a good childhood. So I was reading this article, like I said, I know I get off on tangents, and they were talking about going back into your childhood and taking a day and just kind of being there, being in the situation, being in the environment one more time, still knowing what you know now to be able to appreciate it. And I was thinking about this, like, where would I go if I could, if like a genie popped out right here in the Be Our Guest podcast studios, and it was Robin Williams, which would be pretty sweet because that dude is hilarious, rest in peace. It said, you know what? We're going on a journey today. You thought you were working in the office doing quotes for folks for Disney trips? Not today, buddy. Get on my carpet. We're heading back in time. We're going into your childhood. Where are we going is what the genie might ask me. God, I don't know where I would go if it was limited to 3 places. And I didn't limit myself to 3 places, but maybe we only have time for 3 today. The first place I think I would go and enjoy a day, and this is so weird because I did not appreciate it at the time. And I think that's the theme of this whole show, is that when we're kids, we don't appreciate it. And you're not really going to as a kid. That is what, like, my daughter probably doesn't appreciate some of these things that I think are really special. I think 20 years down the line, she will. But when you're a kid, you just don't get it. You're young. You got the whole world in front of you. When you're 47, you're like, I'm closer to being, 100 years old than 10. It's crazy. I still feel like I'm 22. I honestly feel young. But here's the thing. The first place I think I would go, and this was a mundane thing I did, was I would go to Cloverleaf Golf Course with my grandpa one more time. So I've mentioned it a lot of times. My grandpa was my hero growing up, my dad's dad. Charlie Rallman was his name. My middle name is Charles. I was named because both of my grandpa's first names were Charles. So I was named after both grandpas as far as my middle name, but I was a little bit closer to my dad's dad just because, I don't know, we just hung out more. And he was awesome. He was a deacon in the church. He was just cool. Like, he worked in construction. He was ripped. He was in shape for a 60-year-old. He drove an MG. We fixed up an MG together. That was my first car. He was funny. Like, my grandpa was a combination. If you wanted to look at him and know what his personality was, he was kind of a combination to me of like a Johnny Carson / like a George W. Bush. George H. Not the younger Bush, the one that's still alive. That, because the resemblance there, that, like, the hair and stuff and the build. He kind of was like that. And my grandpa would sit there and watch Johnny Carson every night in his chair. I still remember that. And he'd eat like walnuts. He had a nutcracker and just get shells everywhere. My grandma go crazy. But the thing was, when I was in middle school ish, like 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, in the summertime, spring, summertime, fall time, my grandpa would take me to play golf. We'd only play 9 holes. I don't know if like he was too cheap to play for 18 or if he just didn't want to spend that much time. But we would go over to a golf course called Cloverleaf Golf Course and we'd play 9 holes. And the thing was, I kind of liked it. Like, I wouldn't want to tell my grandpa no, but I was in middle school, right? There were times I'd rather be with my friends or, go over to my buddy Ryan's house and play NES. I didn't have an NES, but he did, or do something like that, hang out. But I always went with grandpa just because I think my dad told me, you're going to go. This is what your grandpa wants to play golf with you. And I like playing golf. And so here's the thing though. So we lived in Missouri. We drove all the way about 45 to 50 minutes away to go to this golf course in Illinois called Cloverleaf in Fosterburg, Illinois, because it was like one of the cheapest public courses around, like in the metropolitan St. Louis area. Now, also, like I mentioned, we only played 9 holes. We never drove a cart. They had carts. Nope. Grandpa said golf was meant to walk. And so we'd walk and he got me like a little wheelie cart for my golf bag. We both had a wheelie cart. So we'd pull our clubs. We'd play this course time and time again, once a week. And I didn't appreciate it at the time. But, like when you play golf with somebody week after week after week, we had a lot of conversations, and I can't really remember the conversations, but I'm sure they were fun. Now, the thing is, when you don't ride in a cart looking back, you don't talk quite as much because my ball would be on one side of the fairway, grandpa's would be on the other, and you're dragging your clubs to your ball. You're not kind of riding together to each person's ball. You're kind of going your own way, which was a shame. But I do remember that just, it was fun being with grandpa because grandpa would cheat. I will say this. So my grandpa, it was just us. Who cared? Like, right. We're just playing with we're not in the, this isn't the Masters. This is a guy, grandpa and his grandkid playing on one of the cheapest courses in St. Louis area, 9 holes, not even 18 on a public course that was, it was okay. But grandpa, like if he got a bad lie with his ball, he'd say, winner rules. That was his line. And so he'd pick it up and put it on a clump of grass. So it was like up higher, almost like it was teed up. And there were times I'd see him like, nick a ball, but that was a practice shot. But I mean, looking back at that, that's what grandpa's supposed to do, right? I mean, when I become a grandpa at some point, hopefully in life, and I take a grandkid out to play golf, I'm going to cheat because that's what grandpas do, right? I was, 14 and I could crush the ball because I was a baseball player. He was just trying to keep up, even though he was a better golfer than me by far. His short game was way better and he had more patience and he knew the right clubs. But it was just one of those things I remember. We'd get an RC Cola in the clubhouse after we played. A lot of folks would go in and get like a full-on meal. Nope, we got an RC Cola. And then we would get ready to drive home. And on a good day, I do remember this, a few times we stopped at what was called Alton Square Mall, Alton, Illinois. It was on the way home. And there was a food court and there was a Hardee's. My grandpa loved Hardee's. And so we might stop in there and get a sandwich. They had a good ham and cheese sandwich. I remember getting that with grandpa many times. And so, yeah, that's one of the days I would relive. I would go back, even though I complained about it. I would go back, drag my clubs all around Cloverleaf Golf Course in Fosterburg, Illinois. Some days it was so cold. Some days it was so hot. But I would do that with grandpa. I would take the X out balls, right? The cheap balls that you buy that are they're like, they used to be Titleist, but now they're X outs, and we had hole number 3 had a lake and you could only shoot X outs over the lake because 50-50 they were going in. Grandpa would never let you shoot like a Pinnacle or a Titleist or anything over any water because I'd always lose it. Yeah, I'd just love to have one more day like that with grandpa. He was fun. And those were days that I had fun, but I didn't appreciate. They went too quickly. So another day I was thinking about this, that would be fun to kind of sit back on and see how it is. And it was at my elementary school, the private elementary school that I went to. So I went to a public elementary school for kindergarten and first grade. And then after first grade, and I did a lot of gifted stuff. I'm not smarter than the next guy, but I just pick up on things kind of quickly, especially when I was a kid. And so I was doing like reading classes in kindergarten and all this. And they just kind of said, you probably should try a public school or private school because they thought that I wasn't getting enough at that school. So anyway, I went to a private school for 2nd to 6th grade, a church school. It was run by the Nazarene Church in Ferguson, Missouri. And so I went there. And the thing is, it was super structured compared to the public school that I went to. You didn't have uniforms at our school, but you had a dress code. The guys had to wear a collared shirt. So I had like all kinds of like knockoff Izods. They weren't real Izods, but they were knockoffs in all different colors. And then you had like basically like Docker pants for kids, blue ones, brown ones, khaki ones. And that's what you wore every day. And I would just like to go back and sit in. I was trying to think like what grade would I sit in if I could sit it? Because again, I spent now 17 years teaching elementary school, 2nd grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, gifted. And I just wonder, like, because you have these memories, but they're more feelings at this point when you're 47. You don't know if these memories are true. But I might like to go back and sit in maybe third grade for a day. And I would just pick a random day, like maybe a day, say like December, maybe a day right before Christmas break. Because as I would imagine that classroom looking back, we would definitely have a Christmas tree up in that classroom. I remember every year we had a Christmas tree up. Um, every morning we did Bible class for an hour. I do remember that as first thing in the morning, like you took attendance, you did your lunch and all that stuff. But then the first class of the day was Bible class, and we had this. And every grade had this, second to sixth. Every grade there was the same thing: 9 to 10, 9 to 9:30, 9 to 10. I don't know what it was, but there was Bible class, and so we had this little felt kind of triangular blank board, and then the teacher would tell a Bible story, and she would put these scenes up on this little felt board. So if she was talking about Moses and the burning bush, she would talk about it, and she'd put up little Moses, this little sticky guy who would stick to the felt. There'd be a bush, and then there, when she got to the part where the bush came on fire, there'd be a little flame you put on top of it. I remember I was enthralled. I don't know if I was so enthralled with the Bible stories because I'd heard those growing up anyway at church, but I was enthralled with that little felt board, how she presented that. Now, if you think about that, looking back, as a teacher for 17 years, I did everything I could to engage my students. Smart boards, PowerPoint presentations, videos, Bill Nye the Science Guy. Like, I would build stuff with them. We built an inflatable space shuttle in the gym that stayed there for a week one time. Yeah, what was my engagement? It was a felt board with little sticky Moses and Noah and Abraham and all this stuff on the felt board. But I still remember that. And I think if I would go back today and be able to kind of sit in on this class, I would still at 47 be enthralled with the story going on that felt board. Another thing I would like to do is if I was in this third grade class again, is I would like to look at the textbooks, because our textbooks were consumable textbooks. They were not kind of like the schools use today. A lot of the schools use non-consumable textbooks. So you can use them over and over. It's better for public schools. It's a cost savings, right? You're not tearing up the book every year. But I do remember, we had every year when you went in the night before school started, when you met your teacher, everybody had a plastic sealed pile of books on top of their desk. In the company, I still remember the company, the publisher of all of our books was called Becca Books out of Pensacola, Florida. And so it was a Christian book company. And you would have your math book, you would have your reading book, you would have a science book, you'd have a social studies book, you had a few reading books like Pilgrim's Progress. I remember was one in third grade. And you had like a grammar handbook. You got a Bible in second grade, and then you had to use it all the way through sixth grade. But you had all these books, and it was exciting. I was a nerd. I get it. I was a nerd. I got excited over school books. But the thing is, I would like to go back and just kind of look at those, because as I recall, every page, especially in math, every page was a new skill. So like with long division, you would have, all the, one day would be, divisor that's one digit. And then you do some practice for a couple days. Then it'd be 2-digit divisors and a 4-digit dividend. But every lesson had a Bible verse at the bottom of the page, which I thought was pretty cool, because I would just, while the teacher was teaching, I'd be reading and trying, and there was examples at the top of the page. And I was always trying to figure it out ahead of time. Like, how do I do this skill? And it was just a really cool, very simple way to learn. And I think, again, side tangent, I just think education has gotten so dang complicated nowadays with trying to come up with new ways to teach math and make things extremely, complex and overthink things. We just learned arithmetic, and guess what? I've made it to 47, and I've been able to succeed in life pretty well. So I don't think things need to be that complicated. So I'd like to go back and see that, but I'd also like to go back and see the kids I remember. I remember Steve. I remember Tim. I remember Jennifer, who lived across the street from me. I remember Jeremy, but I only remember them vaguely at this point because we lost track of each other after sixth grade. But I would love to see, I would love to remember how we walked down the halls. I would love to go back to the cafeteria and see what lunchtime looked like. Because again, our school didn't even have a gym. It was in a church. and it was kind of in an annex part of the church. But I would love to be able to go back because, again, the school has moved twice since this building. It's not in that location anymore. So I cannot go back there right now. But I would love to go back and see it, to take it in, 24 hours or just 12 hours, or just a school day of 8 hours. Do my memories hold up? Like, what was that like? I would love to do that one more time. Back to third grade, North County Christian School. Last thing I want to talk about, if I could go back, because here's three. I would like to go back to, again, this is a St. Louis thing. This is a North County thing. So this is very specific to an area of St. Louis. I would like to go back to Northside Youth Association. Yes, that was called NYA. It was not our home baseball field. In St. Louis, everybody had their home ball fields. I think I've talked about the Weehop baseball fields way back on one of the very first episodes we did of Mike in the Midwest. We were the Florissant area Corey League based out of Weehop Fields, where I lived. But one of the rival teams was NYA. They were from Spanish Lake. Ironically enough, right where my wife lived growing up. Never knew it. I was probably right in her backyard. Never knew she existed. But anyway, NYA was right on the Mississippi River. If you ever cross from what's called the Chain of Rocks Bridge over into Missouri, on the Chain of Rocks Bridge, NYA was right there to your right to the north of the bridge. That was NYA ball fields. And I remember as a kid, you did not want to play at NYA because every time NYA would come to Weehop, you play them at Weehop, and then you go to NYA and play them there. It was a home and home kind of series before I even knew what that meant. And so you didn't want to play at NYA in July because right adjacent to NYA ball fields was a pig farm. They had a pig farm. And I mean, it stunk so bad in like the heat of the summer. It was brutal. But of course, after a couple innings, you kind of adjusted. You didn't realize it. But God, when you walked in, it was horrible. Like when you got out of your car at that place, it was brutal. But I do. So the day I would go back, though, I go to NYA and I would go back to what was called Bantam 2. It's when we were about 12 years old, maybe 11. The name of our team that year was the Tigers. And we had yellow uniforms, green cursive tigers across it, yellow hats, green stirrups. And man, we thought this is the first year that we got our own uniforms. It's like the Bad News Bears, right? Before this, we got the ones that the Corey League gave us. They were all pinstripe. We looked like the Yankees, but every team looked like the Yankees that played for Weehop. Nope, we got a sponsor, Benjamin Moore Paints, and we were the Tigers. And we got to keep these uniforms. We got to pick our numbers. And I just remember at NYA that year, if I could go back to one day, it was the playoffs into the season. And we had to win 4 games this day because we lost our first game. It was double elimination. So we had to come through the losers bracket and beat the team that was undefeated twice. You had to beat them once, and then you had to beat them a second time. So they got 2 losses. And we did it that day. I still remember it. We were the underdogs. I was kind of sick. I still pitched that day. I probably shouldn't have because I was running a fever. And there's a picture, and I'll post it here on the Patreon. So I'll post that this week. I got to find it. My dad gave me a bunch of old pictures of just this group of kids. I mean, you have never seen a group of kids so happy. We won this little trophy. We won the North County Travel League. It was called the North County Travel League. We were the champions, the underdogs. We took them out. And it was the greatest thing ever. It was the greatest thing ever. And looking back, here's the thing. Why this would be so special? My catcher that day, and for my whole childhood, was my buddy Steve. And about 10 years ago, Steve, he was a gym teacher in Pattonville elementary schools here in St. Louis. He was killed by a drunk driver. And it was really sad because Steve ended up living up the street from me where I lived with Pam before we moved here to St. Peter's. So we lived on the same street. We reconnected. We played softball in a league together and really got to know each other. Really, because we were like best friends growing up, elementary school, middle school. But then we kind of fell, and Cobb went to college. He didn't go to college. We, weren't as close during that time. But we reconnected, started playing softball again, about 3 or 4 years before he was killed here. And I would just like to go back one more day and, watch Mike Rallman pitch into Steve Bergen with Scott Weber on third, Matt McGeehee in center field, Jeff Principali at shortstop, Mike Ketchum at second base, Ryan Lorraine playing first base, God, Joey Taylor in right field. I still remember these guys. They were my buds. And how cool would it be if we could go back and just sit in and watch that, knowing what we know now. I think that's one of the great things about nostalgia, right? Is to go back. We have photos, but not as many. I think that's the benefit of like Mallory growing up in the era she's growing up. It's a negative and a positive. I probably have 10,000 pictures of Mallory, and I'm not joking. I probably have that many. When I go back to these memories of me, I don't have any. They're up here, which makes them special. They're in my mind, and hopefully they'll never go away. And they're in my heart for sure. All these memories are definitely in my heart. But it's interesting because this next generation, everything's there. Everything's documented. You can see it. 323. We're on Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World on July 12th. It's crazy. You have timestamps, you have metadata. Okay, so here's what I want to hear from you. I really want to hear from you this week. If you could go back one place into your childhood, into your past, and just be kind of like a omniscient observer and take it all in. Something maybe you didn't appreciate so much as a kid, but man, you would give anything to see that one day again, that one place, that one event, just that one typical day. If you could go back one place, where would it be? I'd love to hear that. I hope you've enjoyed my journey today. We can just talk about this more coming up, but I sure appreciate you being a patron. I sure appreciate you letting me live my dream. I don't say that enough, but I really do. I mean, I have more than I should. I'm lucky that I get to podcast. Not everybody gets to talk about things that they're passionate about, they love, and it's because you're helping us out here on Patreon, and I sure thank you so very much for that. All right, we will do this again next Thursday. Before I get on that airplane to head south, I promise you we'll get a show out there somehow, some way. But until then, please take care, stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. Bye, everybody.